One, two, three, four.
Kia ora tātou listeners, I'm Jay and your host for today's installment of Starting in Science, a series where we explore opportunities and advice for people on their personal journeys with careers in science. Today, we'll fill your auditory senses with an aria of accents. That's because today we're talking to a panel of 3 early career researchers who have recently-ish migrated to Aotearoa New Zealand. They're all based in our wonderfully diverse city, Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland. And I consider it a personal pleasure because I've also immigrated to Aotearoa. And as a result, I am very happy to talk to these 3 wonderful researchers about their journeys through the immigration process and settling in another country. Traveling to another country for further studies or to start a new job can be an exciting time, but can also come with many challenges, especially when English is a second language. So, I'll get us started by introducing myself and then I'll throw around to you folks. I am Jayaraman. I'm a molecular plant pathologist. I came to New Zealand in, let's say about 12 years ago. And the reason why I came to New Zealand was, primarily the All Blacks, but also because Aotearoa has a wonderful molecular plant pathology program. I was interested in plants and I was interested in plant diseases. And this is where my journey started. How about you, Luna?
Thanks, Jay. Kia ora koutou, everyone. I am here in New Zealand for last 10 years. I came in 2013 December, so it's coming to 10 years now. I came here to start my family, and I was born and brought up in Bangladesh. So all through my life, I spent in Bangladesh, and this is the second country I have ever been to. How about Liz?
Hi everyone, I'm Liz and I came to New Zealand from Peru to do a master's studies in biology, not knowing I was going to stay here for a bit longer than that to do my PhD. And so I've been here 6 years. I'm just doing a lot of research.
Hi everyone, I'm Tina Wang. I come from China to pursue my PhD in New Zealand. Yeah, that was 6 years ago almost. So now I'm doing my postdoc in molecular biology. And yeah, that's me.
Perfect. That sounds wonderful. I'm glad to have you all here. Okay, so let's start. It can be quite difficult, a decision to move to New Zealand, a foreign country that you've never been to, short of, Googling and that sort of thing. Let's start with you, Luna. How difficult was it to decide to move to New Zealand?
Basically, coming to a new country is a lot of adjustment. You have to adjust your language and new culture. It's basically you are leaving your life behind and all you are bringing is your memory. And it's not easy to make that decision. It's like leaving your past behind and starting over from a very, very new beginning. You have to go through a lot. It's not easy, but saying that for me, in my circumstances, I got married and it's not by choice that I choose to come to New Zealand. It's my husband is here and I had to start over. So I have to make that decision.
Yeah, sounds challenging, sounds very scary.
Yeah, it is very uncertain.
Yeah, of course. But glad you moved?
Yes, I am glad too.
Wonderful. How about you, Liz?
Yeah, so in my case, I was very certain that I wanted to follow postgraduate studies and I knew I was going to do it overseas. So coming to New Zealand to do a master's was actually very exciting for me. And I was really looking forward to it. But of course, I didn't know the challenges that were going to come along the way. But I was definitely excited to start this journey that I knew was going to come with not being able to speak the language very well at the beginning or not knowing much about plant pathology. But I was going to learn in the process.
And Tina?
For me, it might be easier because I was a post-harvest researcher in China, and we started to collaborate with PEPFAR here for 2 years before I started here. So actually, I knew my supervisor before I even started my PhD here. So I also visited New Zealand several times for work, so it's not so strange to me, the whole environment. I think to me the difficult part is to convince my family that I will come here with my 4 years daughter back then, 4 years old. She was when I decided to come here. My family knew it will be quite challenging, but I was kind of how difficult it could be, which I realized it is kind of challenging later in my studying. But yeah, I just made the decision I want to go. Then I just came.
Yeah. So you've now decided to come to Aotearoa New Zealand. How was the actual move?
Mine can be summarized in one word, which is rush, because I was applying for my master's just 5-6 weeks before the semester started. And in the moment when I heard a yes from the University of Auckland, I was, okay, I'm doing this now. For a second, I thought maybe I should consider other universities that accepted me, but then I saw the curricula and I was no longer that interested. So I told my parents, okay, this is happening. I'm going in like 5-6 weeks. In my mind, I was thinking I'm coming to New Zealand for 2 years. So I only packed my clothes, my shoes, my nail polish, and then off I go. And one thing I haven't said is my mom is a person that she loves that rush feeling. She loves doing a million things in one go. So she was very on board with helping me with this process. So we were both buying things together. And because of that rush, I didn't think much of the sad part of it, or like the challenging part, the emotional part. It was not until I was in New Zealand like 4 or 5 months, I was like, whoa, what did I do? Like, I'm doing this on my own. And it was the same for my parents. They were very supportive, but once I was gone, they were like, yeah, it's gone.
The plane ride was not that bumpy, but it took me 24 hours to reach New Zealand. So preparing for it, it's like, I applied for the visa and it's going to come because it's a partnership-based visa. So it might take longer, but it will come eventually. It took me around 4 to 5 months to get all the visas sorted and everything. But once I got the visa, they had this limit of like I have to go within 3 months. So that put me on a
Yet
tight
another crazy
timeline.
rush, yeah.
Yeah. And when I bought my ticket, they said 30-kilo bag. I was like, my whole 22 years life cannot be packed in 30 kilos. So all I can take is the certificates and few of the emotional clothes that, it's like, I even brought my parents' clothes, like to have the feeling of them. So I have got one of my dad's t-shirt and one of my mom's sari that she wear. And I think it's both emotional and and then you don't know what's in the other side. And then again, I had a transit and I never fly out of the country. So
Wow.
I was just thinking, what if I miss the plane? What if I go in a different, and what if I don't go in the right terminal? All sorts of uncertainties. And then again, when I'm leaving, I don't know if our country is the only country where people cries a lot in the airport. So
Definitely
we
not.
were
Yeah.
out in tears. And
Yeah.
then when I left my parents, then I was like, oh yeah, now the real life starts and I have to think from here. I have to go in the right plane and get my passport and all this paperwork ready for the next things and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I could so relate to that as well. I still get nervous when I travel overseas, especially if I have to make a connecting flight somewhere. Oh my God, the amount of planning and consideration it takes, it's incredible. But yeah, totally relate.
And it's funny when you're passing immigrations, you probably don't really have anything that you should worry about, but you do. You're like, am I carrying drugs or something? And you really don't. But you're just like, I'm nervous about it for some reason.
Every time I come back to New Zealand, I just feel like, what if my kids just sneaking an orange in the pocket? What if they have put something in the bag that I don't know?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you can't carry produce
Yeah.
into New Zealand. No,
I don't
fair.
want a $400 fine.
That's a good point. How about you, Tina? How was your move?
That was actually quite easy. I mean, because I've visited New Zealand several times before I started my PhD, so I knew where I'm going. And also I had my accommodation and airplane stuff all organized. It feels to me just like another business trip, because I was working the day before I came here.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel that much, especially like emotional-wise. But yeah, I do feel that later on.
Yeah.
But it's it's not so emotional or rush for me. That's my experience.
It's great.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, New Zealand was my second country that I emigrated to because I first moved to Australia, and I felt like I was already an expert in moving countries. And how wrong I was. New Zealand is very different.
Exactly. The same, because even back in China, I moved quite a lot between cities, so it's kind of felt normal for me.
I mean, I suppose every new migration is a new adventure. There's challenges, but there's always wonderful things to experience along the way. So, yeah.
But when I look back, I was like, too naive, Tina.
You live, you grow. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's what life is about, yeah.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about some of those challenges. Did any of you, let's say, face language barriers, or did you have to do English as a second language, a course, or anything like that?
Language barrier for me is definitely the biggest challenge I face too when I come here. So to get into university, to do a PhD, we have to pass the IELTS, which is language test, which more academic. So to read and write, I'm fine. But when it comes to, day-to-day life, especially like socializing, it can be quite challenging for me. Because sometimes I don't know if you guys have that moment. All the people are laughing, but you don't know what's happening.
100%.
So sometimes I would feel awkward and hard to fit into the community.
Of course.
Yeah, same for me. I felt like very confident with my English before I came here, and then once I was here, I was like, oh, I don't know where that confidence came from. And to learn the New Zealand slangs was also a challenge that no one really tells you because you're surrounded by Kiwis, and they won't know that they're saying dogs instead of swimwear or any sort of slang. King ass.
So your advice would be learn some Kiwi slang.
Definitely learn some
to...
Kiwi slangs before you come here. And then you can bond better with the people, and
Nice. But there's also learning on the job, learning on the fly. On the fly, I said
it. Good to know.
How about you, Luna?
I think the thing I was facing is when I generally speak, I speak a little bit faster. But when I first came here, I had to think in my language and translate it. And then maybe I'm saying a sentence, and then I really, really forgot what that exact word I had to say. I was like, I have to pause in between a sentence and think about the right word to fit the sentence and then complete it. So there are some times when I was like, I would be quieter than normal, and then just to say the things I just have to say and not extend the conversation.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, I'm really impressed with all three of you because, I mean, I grew up in Fiji where the primary language is English, and I've always spoken English. In fact, my mother tongue is Tamil, and I don't speak it at all.
Oh, wow.
So I really only know one language. I cannot imagine moving to a country where I'd have to learn, a language from scratch to be able to cope. And it's particularly frustrating for me, having spoken English all my life, and then I went to Australia for my undergrad. And then in Australia, I did the IELTS, so IELTS exam to prove that I was good at English. And then have to do that every 2 years because it expires for visas and that sort of thing. And then coming to New Zealand, and I had to do it again. And every time I was getting a band of 9, which is the highest score, because that's my language. And yet having to prove it every time can be quite frustrating. And, I try and help my friends to, get better at their IELTS so they could also pass. So it is a challenge, thinking about it. And it was easier for me, but well done for all of you for taking on this on that challenge.
Thank
I
you.
got like a 7 on the IELTS, so
Yeah.
you're really good. 9 is very impressive.
Well, imagine if I did Spanish, Liz. I'd get a 0.
And I get a 9, I hope.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, so what were some other hurdles you encountered in New Zealand? What work and study hurdles did you face during your time here? Luna?
Well, getting started on the first job wasn't easy. Before coming to science, I think I had a covered wide range of jobs. Like I worked in calendar club in the mall selling calendars. I had run my own food business. I worked in kids' clothing store. I worked in a hummus packing company. I worked for Maxwell and William, the ceramics and plates and all these things. So I think I have covered almost all the jobs before coming to science.
Wonderful.
But then again, even that job, getting the first job wasn't easy. You have to go through, all this formal procedure of writing CV, cover letters, and going to the interview. And again, I am not from an English-speaking country, so if I'm going for a customer service job and if my English is not good, they will not hire me. They will not look at my science qualification. They will only look at how I can communicate with people, which is, of course, not that great because of my language barrier.
Yeah, no, I totally relate. Because when I first came to New Zealand, on a student visa, you get up to 20 hours of work. I got my first job at Bunnings in the garden center. Absolutely loved that job. Still love that job to this day. I'd definitely go back to it if I could. But, it is a challenge, like understanding the social norms, the mores, and getting that role can be quite tricky, especially in a customer service type job that, you start off with.
Yeah. So my first job was in packing hummus and dips. And that's the first day of my work. I went there and you have to be in a room of 4 degrees because that's the temperature they have to maintain. So I was wearing all these overall suits and I came from a tropical country. First month in, I am in 4 degrees for 12-hour shift. And I was like, that's it for my life.
Yeah. Oh, I totally relate to the cold weather. I cannot.
Yeah.
How about you, Tina? Did you get any jobs before your postdoc position at Plant Food?
After I handed in my thesis, I had a gap between the postdoc position and my submission. So I did some casual work just in Plant and Food, but for different team. That was also during the COVID time. Because it's also in science, what I did was what I'm familiar with. So it's not so difficult to me per se. But I did have some hurdles throughout my whole time in New Zealand. I don't know if you guys have ever encountered this, is renting. So not saying the price, just find a proper rent house is kind of difficult. I never thought I would be interviewed to get a rental house because it's ridiculous if you're in China. Like, you're the boss, you have the money in your pocket, so you are the guy who interview others, like your suppliers. But here you have to be interviewed and you submit your application. And also I just had this bad luck to have the worst landlord constantly. So took advantages of me not knowing the policy here. For example, my first landlord, here you don't need to pay the fixed charge for wastewater or all your water. Mm-hmm. But they asked me to pay all the bill all the time. And also I ended up with to go into tribunal with my landlord because I was trying to maintain this little garden there, but they accused me to not notifying them, which I did. And they accused me to killed their plants over there. So I have to, pay back of that. And constantly hassle. So it's quite bad experience to me. Yeah.
It sounds really tough, actually.
It was, especially by the time I went to tribunal, it was my provincial year time. So I was super stressed about to pass my provincial year presentation. And meantime, I have to go to tribunal with them. Wow. It's absolutely not pleasant experience here.
Of course. How about you, Liz? Any challenges you faced when you first came?
I was facing more of, I feel like they're not as challenging as the ones that you two face, but I face academic challenges more than cost of living or family. So in my aspect, which is a bit different, I came from studying microbiology in humans, and I felt like coming here, I could only find topics related to microbiology in plants or plant diseases, which I never thought in my life. I never considered plants to be the protagonist or the hosts of many diseases.
As of course they are.
And as of course they are. Yeah. And so I had to shift my mindset a little bit and be like, am I willing to change my path into this career and into plant pathology? And then in the end, I was like, yes, because what I want to do at the end of the day is study microorganisms regardless of the host or where they are. So throughout the path, I end up loving a lot the plant side. So I end up developing that care about the plant and also about fungus, which is something that I also came knowing zero. So my main challenge when I first came was more academic based. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, a worthy challenge to have, to be honest. Not to race to the bottom, but my challenge when I came to New Zealand was with driving. So when I came to New Zealand, I'd learned to drive in Fiji, where people have very similar rules to this country, but they tend to have all these additional things that you do in addition to the rules themselves. So when you're pulling out, you indicate with a signal, but often you toot your horn to indicate to other people that you're pulling out. You know, those social mores around the culture of driving in a different country. And so when I started doing that when I got here, my friend who'd also come from Fiji, he was sitting with me and he's like, what the heck are you doing? you can't start this whole tooting every 10 seconds thing. And so, it was a challenge, I have to say. My hands were really itchy for the horn, and I had to pull it back. Yeah, so definitely a race to the bottom. Like, what a severe challenge that was.
You're not the only one with the driving challenges. Peru could not be
Same
more
here.
different to New Zealand.
Same here, yeah. Also, we drive the opposite way in China.
Ooh, that can be pretty tough.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
Peru you drive on the right as well,
Yeah.
and you keep right.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
I learned driving in New Zealand. So the
that's
first
good.
time I came here, I didn't know how to drive. I got my learner's license, wait for 6 months and practice my restricted exam, then wait for another year to go for the full exam. So I have got all the step-by-step procedure, but it took me 2.5 years to get a full license. So if you are restricted with you have to have a job where you need a full license, I cannot apply for that job to start with, as I didn't have a full license when I came here.
yeah, I do know the test process because when you come into this country, you get 12 months on your international license, assuming it's a full license, before you have to convert it. And so this is when I was tooting my horn a lot. Tooting my own horn, as you might say. But during the process, I had to convert and do all the tests and that sort of. So you can transfer the experience, quote unquote, from that license to a New Zealand license. But it is such an involved process. You've got to do a written test and then, on a computer really, and then a driving test with an instructor.
Two. So
Oh,
one for
right.
restricted, 45
Oh,
minutes,
yes.
and then the full license, which is the conversion
Yeah.
if you have one. So I had to go for 2 practical driving tests and 1 theory.
That is, it's a significant amount of money and time that goes into getting these. So, well, congratulations for all the drivers at this table. Tina, you did mention problems with living with landlords and that sort of thing. And I know, particularly at this time, living costs and that, it can be really quite steep, quite expensive, especially if you come from a country where the currency conversion rate doesn't work to your benefit. I know that when I came from Fiji, the currency conversion was quite shocking, particularly because people earned a lot less in Fiji as well. The dollar value was a lot less. And then you convert the currency. It seems like I came to a country of millionaires. How did it feel like for you folks? Let's start with you, Tina.
Well, it's really interesting because I got my master in China in 2010, and I started my job there. So that's the timing the housing price start to soaring in my city. And then when I started my PhD here in 2018, which is also the timing the housing price.
You timed it well.
Yeah, it's just my luck. So if I have to compare the housing price or the rental property between the city where I come from, which is a big one with 21 million population, it's comparative, the housing price now and the rental as well. But if you go to not top 10 cities in China, it would be much cheaper for the housing and living cost in China.
Yeah, living costs as well, like when you think about food and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you're cooking
Yeah.
or not going out eating out that much in Auckland, yeah, it's similar.
Yeah, I definitely can't say I cook a lot. Like, Auckland's the perfect city to live in if you like to eat out, which I definitely do.
Totally.
Yeah. Cost of living issues with you, Liz?
Oh, totally. Yeah. No matter where you're from in Peru, it will be way more expensive to live in New Zealand. And I don't know, you made these mistakes that I did, which was in my first year, I kept converting everything to Peruvian soles, which is the currency in Peru. And it's exactly half of or a bit less now than New Zealand dollars. So everything was double the price to my eyes. So that didn't help. Everything felt so expensive. So I did that for pretty much more than a year or almost two. And then at some point I was just like, just stop doing that. It doesn't help you. And try to be more organized with the expenses I'm having and be able to afford things that I do want to buy.
Budgeting and that
budgeting, totally. And still kind of budgeting as a PhD student, but it's more manageable now.
Yeah, I guess the conversion would have been a lot harder for you. You know, you started as a student in this country, and it's a well-known thing that students are poor in this country.
Yep, yeah. So I was double the poor.
All over the world, I guess.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah, the poorest class, the ignored class, students.
It is, sadly, yeah.
Right. Any cost of living issues with you, Luna?
I was the lucky one because my husband was working already here.
Oh, nice.
Very
I
good.
was living on my husband, but saying that is not the best thing. So if you consider the living cost back home, I'm not from one of the big city in Bangladesh. I'm from a really, really small town. And living cost is, I would say it's 7 or 8-fold more in New Zealand. If I think about the conversion, I cannot really relate. But again, salary is maybe 7-fold less in that country. So what you earn, that you spend. Same here, whatever we earn, we spend accordingly. So I cannot compare the living cost from back home to here, but I am one of the culprit. I still shop for clothing and stuff for me, even for my kids from back home. So I spend the New Zealand money back home. I can get more value for the money.
That's real smart. I love it. Little cheat there.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I'm much more happier spending my New Zealand money in Peru than here. Yeah.
Same here.
Yeah, this time I went back early this year. And I was so glad I took my card with me, and my bank doesn't charge anything extra if I'm spending overseas. And I'm swapping my card. And one stage, the Uber cost was $3 to go from one place to another. It's like, oh my goodness, $3 cost. It just feels like I'm not spending anything.
That's great. I mean,
Feel
to be
rich.
fair, well, I mean, to be fair, a lot of Kiwis do spend in other countries through things like AliExpress or, you know, you buy online, who knows where your products are coming from. So I think it is quite smart to consider that when you're coming into this country. I think that's absolutely really good advice. Wonderful. You did mention having a husband. I mean, if I could arrange for, that would be wonderful. But, that does raise a point of having some sort of family support along the way. And it can be particularly tough if you're separated from your family. How'd you cope with that?
I think family support will always, or the amount that you needed, will go back to how you were raised or the background that you come from. And at least in South America, it's all about that emotional family support. Whereas I know in some Western countries, it might be more about teaching your kid on how to be more independent and autonomous. In Peru, particularly, it's all about keeping those family bonds and gathering almost every week and seeing your friends, and a lot of physical also affection, so lots of hugs from friends all the time. I didn't know the words personal space until I came to New Zealand. It's just like something you don't have in Peru, I guess. So for me, the first year I struggled for sure, because I feel like the messages and the video calls with parents were not enough. But throughout the years, because I've been here 6 years, I think I learned to switch on and off and appreciate my personal space in New Zealand. I know how people was going to share their affection in a different way here. And when I went back to Peru, I will switch on all the Peruvian in me and receive all the love and nice welcoming words from my family and friends. Yeah.
I know you've definitely adapted now, Liz, because sometimes I'll see you in the morning. I'll give you that head nod, the good morning head nod.
Yeah, I no longer want to hug you, Jay.
Yeah. What about you, Tina?
I was quite lucky to have my family to come over for 1 year visit. So my parents come here and stayed with me to help me at the first year of my PhD. And also, like during the COVID, it's not really fortunate that I was totally separated from my whole family because I was here alone. But that's really kind of tough because you're constantly worried about your family, how they're doing over there, and the pandemic situation. But we do, thanks to technology, we do FaceTime, video call. That helps a lot. I mean, family support is really, really important during the whole studying and living in New Zealand time. Like regardless how far physically they are to you. Yeah.
That's pretty tough. Yeah. Luna?
So it's not for me, it's not only my family. I grew up in an extended family. So all my uncles and aunties, all my cousins, I grew up in a house where all my cousins and me, we lived in the same bed. So what you are saying, that personal space, I never even slept in a single bed. Forget about a room. So when I grew up, we were 4 cousins. We slept in a really huge super king size bed together, four sisters. Wow. So I still have everybody in touch thanks to FaceTime and WhatsApp and Messenger. So all these bondings, I really, really, really miss it here in New Zealand. But again, with the family and job and everybody is getting busy. So maybe once in a week we do still keep in touch. And think that's one of the most important thing back home, that the family bonding is so much like no matter what happens to you, your family is always there to support you.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I come from a reasonably large family with 5 kids and my parents, and we catch up on WhatsApp probably every week, every fortnight. And it can be pretty tough. It can be isolating, and I only live 3 hours by plane from my family. So, even a short distance can be quite isolating. So, ka pai for all of you, coping with your stresses and finding ways to cope and, planning for it and staying connected with your family. It's really wonderful. I have to say, though, with my parents, they really pushed me to study and go overseas. So it's particularly annoying because now that I've migrated to New Zealand and I've asked them to come and join me, they refuse to do it. They've got their community, they've got their families and friends in Fiji, so they refuse to come and join me. And yet they keep complaining about how I never visit, apparently. I do try and make it back at least once every 2 years or so. Well, COVID threw a spanner in the works. But, it is funny how parents have double standards when it comes to the kids. So I'm glad that you're able to, at least you, Tina, get some family to come and visit.
So I can relate to your, what you are saying, because I have kids, and I would, if I even push my kids to go and have a higher study, I would still miss them. But again, when we are in the very beginning of our life and we are thinking to go to a different country, these are the things we are talking about today, is like what are the hurdles we are facing. Just imagine somebody of your parents' age, if they come now in a different country, what they will face.
Oh, of course. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah, do your parents know English, Jay?
Yeah. English is the first language in Fiji, so they speak very fluent English.
That's the main barrier for my parents. They're like, we love New Zealand because they visit here once, and they loved almost every aspect of it, but the language, I was the translator the entire time, so that was like, that's going to limit us a lot because they're very talkative people, but when you don't know the language, no one gets to know that about you.
Oh, yeah, that's something that, that you have to factor in as well. True.
I don't know about you guys, but I do find myself have like this closer bond to my family after I come overseas, because in our culture we don't say I love you that much. we don't express our emotion that much. But now my mom just get used to say, I love you, I miss you. So I feel so great.
Oh, wow. That's so true. Yeah. When I first started the WhatsApp calls with my mom, I would end with, love you, mom. And she would just awkwardly be like, okay, talk to you next week.
Yeah, it's the same with my parents. Back in Peru, we will always be like, okay, bye. And now it's like, I love you. And I could feel it was a bit awkward for them at first. But then later on, they're like, oh, I love you too, daughter, And it's now like that, yeah. So the distance makes you more connected in a weird way.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder, of course.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I faced is there was a stage my mom was in the hospital and she had a brain stroke and she had blood clotting on her brain. She was fainted for a couple of days and I cannot go. So that feeling, like if your parents or somebody back home is sick or they are in their last stage, you know that it's not going to be easy. But that feeling. So if you are coming overseas, you have to just say that this is the time you are boarding on the plane. Next time you go, you don't know who you are going to see and who you are not going to see. I lost 2 of my uncles from last time I visited and this time. So one of them was sick. I know that I might not see him again. But during COVID, I lost one of my other uncle that I had no idea, how life can be. So when you're coming overseas, you have to factor that in, that, even if your parents are dying, you might not see them because for me, it will take 24 hours to go back and organizing the tickets and everything. You never know.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Luna. Really sorry for all of your losses. I cannot even imagine, the tremendous willpower and strength it took for you to get through all of that. And so that is a really strong, powerful point. The time that is lost with your family and not knowing that if you'll see them. Yeah, really appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, it does sound like, there's significant challenges, obviously associated with, the various benefits of moving to a country like New Zealand. So how do you cope with the various struggles that you face? What are the opportunities to sort of grow from them? Liz?
I learned quickly when I came here that I was alone, as sad as that sounds. So I wanted to build my own community of both friends outside of work, but also inside of work. And that's interesting because I feel like many Kiwis that might be working at Planet Food, they already have their friends and family outside of here, so they don't necessarily need to build friendships here. But for me, that was important. So that's why I dragged you along, Jay, and you became my friend. And many people on the level 6 of here at Mount Albert became my close friends and the people I will approach and talk to when I was finding a struggle. And most of the times I got lots of help from them, if not all the time. So that really helped me heaps to navigate all these struggles I had in both at Planet Food and in New Zealand in general. Yeah.
How about you, Tina?
Wow. By crying a lot.
That's fair.
Now, actually, there are quite a lot of Chinese here, and we sort of have this community. And also, I met so many extraordinary Chinese women here. Some of them went to the best university in the whole world, but then they sacrifice their career in China, come here to look after their kids and to pursue a bit good education here. So I became really close friends to them, and you have so much income to just communicate.
So they were like mentors basically, as well as friends then.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also I've got, as Liz said, we've got really supportive environment here in Planet Food, either academic-wise. So if you got some problems in your lab work, you can always find help hands around you. And also there are friends here, like PhD students community, and our team members. They are really, really supportive. I remember there was once I was under super stress of my driver's license. You couldn't believe I had 10 years driving experience in China, but I couldn't just pass it here. Mm-hmm. And every time for ridiculous reason. So I had it 4 times. So I was at the last time I was like, oh my God, can't I pass it? So at that time I just standing outside of the office of one of my colleagues, and I was in tears. I was like, I think my colleague, which is now my close friend, he was looking at me and, what's happening? I was like, I failed again, But then, he just took me to the cafe and calmed me down and, just give you that kind of support you really need. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, on the Chinese community and friends here, which, family, of course, but those friends and colleagues, they are here close to you. They know what's happening. You don't need to explain the whole thing to your family, which is far away. Yeah, that's really good. And sometimes even a hug gives you lots of strength too.
Yeah, absolutely. Your colleagues and, from the same community, they get it. They get that it's a challenge. They get all of that. Yeah. 4 tries isn't that many, is it? 'Cause it took me 4 tries to get get through the written test, to be honest. What really did it for me was actually reading the road code. Who knew that was actually useful? So I tried 3 times and I failed miserably every time. And I was like,
so it took you 4 times to be like, let's read the road code.
Yeah. Well, 3 times.
Three times, sorry.
I read the road code. I'm like, oh my God, there's so much good stuff in here that might be useful, because you come in thinking, I know how to drive. I've been driving for 5 years, 10 years.
My whole life,
Nope.
Turns out you don't.
Yeah, I think I have done it the very basic way, and I passed everything in first chance, all the exams.
Gosh. Oh, Luna.
See, missed career opportunity there. You could have been a professional driver. How do you cope with stress, Luna?
Breathing. So I think I don't know, I'm going to set an example here. It's not related to work or anything. So the day I was going for my childbirth, one of the ladies, she said that, in the world, look at the population. All the women has gone through this. If they can do it, you can do it too. You have to have the positive attitude on you and you will be fine. So from then onwards, every time somebody goes for a delivery, I tell exactly the same thing, and that helped for them. So it's not only for that cases. Anything in your life, you have to have let's go girl, you can do it. You have to have that positive attitude on you. So I think that helped me a lot. And there will be time you completely struggle and, you just have to stop everything and focus on one thing at a time. The thing that you can not do without, do that one first. And the things that you can drop that. And then focus on one thing. Planning is one of the most important things. So plan small things, do it, and then go forward. I think that helped me to come up with the hurdles.
Yeah, I think that's generally really fantastic advice, Luna. Thank you for that. And to sort of expand a little bit on what your midwife gave you advice on is, when you sort of come to this country, we have a large, diverse immigrant community. What they can do, you can do. And so, lean on the migrant community. That's really good advice. I really like that. All right, so we did talk about living costs and management of that sort of thing as part of the coping strategy. Do any of you know of any scholarships or international sort of support opportunities that you'd like to highlight?
As a student, and if you're into science, then you're supposed to like a little bit of research. So if you do a bit of research on almost every website of universities in New Zealand, you will find information. There's actually a lot of scholarships for international students. It's just that we don't know how to search. I didn't know really how to search when I started my master's. I did a 2-minute search and I couldn't find anything, and I was like, okay, I'm done. And then was like, there is no scholarships for me. But there are resources around. And once I had to make a compilation of scholarships for Latin American students, because I was going to give that document for Peruvians that are looking to pursue a career overseas. And that's when I realized, there's actually a lot of scholarships that we just don't know about. And some universities have a better website where you can find things easier. Some don't. And it's just a matter of doing that research a little bit.
Yeah, I like that particularly that you join a student group or Peruvian student group or an international student group for advice, learn from other people's mistakes.
Yeah, because similar to what both of you just said, I felt like if I achieve this career in New Zealand, why not everyone else? I know brilliant people in Peru that can do it. I was like, let me just give them a bit of a hand and give them some information. Because I'm sure like there's lots of qualified people in Peru that can achieve this. Yeah.
Yeah, we do have the similar sort of things, like a Facebook group that's called Bangladeshi Student Community. So when somebody is coming, they will be posting, I'll be coming in this month, and if somebody can organize the accommodation for us or something like that to start with. Or if somebody is looking for flatmates and stuff. So people go through that channel as well. And to add to the scholarship thing, when I first started applying for a scholarship, I thought you have to be a really, really good student to get a scholarship, but that's not true.
I don't know.
So here, like, I never applied for a scholarship, and I always thought that, oh, maybe I will not get it. So you always have that mindset, but that's not true. Anyone can get a scholarship. It just have to fit the purpose. So, they are looking for something on some particular field area. I think it's just a matter of applying and how you apply and keep on applying until you get it. Yeah. So personally, I got 2 scholarships that I thought I will never get any scholarship in my life. Yeah. So it's just a matter of applying.
Yeah, it's the same in Peru, where the grades go from 1 to 20, whereas here is more letters based, right? And I always had an average of 15, 16 in undergrad, and I thought that's just not going to get me any scholarships in New Zealand. But turns out from 14 to 20 is considered an A in New Zealand for some bizarre reason. And then it kind of makes sense in a way, because I never met anyone in undergrad that could get anything above 17. It was just a very difficult grade to achieve. So I was like, okay, then I do have the grades for these scholarships. And if I just let myself assume that I was not going to get them and I would have not applied, then I would have just never gotten anything. So yeah, it's good to still try, even if you think that you might not have the grades for it.
Yeah, that's generally good advice, team. So just to summarize that, so you're talking about, be curious, reach out to your social networks, learn from them, accumulate information, go searching. Okay. And also to be resilient, be confident, be resilient, try. If you don't try, you don't get. So yeah, that's generally really good advice. Thank you for that. Okay, so to move on a little bit, I personally don't have kids. And I know you, Liz, don't have kids yet. But Tina and Luna, you have kids.
Yes.
I wanted to explore that a little bit. Can you tell me what it's like? Your kids are here in this country. What is it like while you're setting roots in this country? What is it like for your kids to set roots in this country, and how that affects you, or having a family set roots in this country? We'll start with you, Tina.
Okay, so my daughter is now turning into 10, and she was 4 when we started here. So she went to Minimark, which is really convenient. And also, as a PhD student, you get these government subsidies for 20 hours free in candy. So cost-wise, it's affordable. And then for my daughter, so first of all, her language, she didn't speak English at all when she came here to start with. But after about half year, she started to throw me some big English words and ask me what's that. I was like, I have to Google it. And she becomes more like outgoing and trying to help people. And even in kindergarten, she tried to help the teachers to get the milk every day, every morning, like that. Because the education we have in China is very academic focused, and you need to learn those crazy Chinese characters at the very young stage. And even in kindergarten, it's very competitive, and you have to go through an interview and stuff. But I could totally tell that her confidence has been boosted up quite a lot. And I could say she's enjoying her childhood, not only study. So I could tell that she's happy. So that's a big encouragement for me to, pursue a career here, no matter how difficult it would be. So, yeah.
Can I ask, do you feel like your childhood was a bit more study focused than what your kids?
Myself, to be honest, not.
Okay.
I always found study was not particularly difficult for me. So I was like kind of kid, I just go home, do my homework, and then play. I never felt it's like a burden for me.
Okay.
But I know many of my friends who have kids similar age with my daughter, not only themselves are very like stressful, but also the kids, and they took like hours after school to, go extra curriculum, go to do the homework. You might not believe this. Some of my niece, she's 7 years old. She's in year 2 now. Sometimes she has to do homework until 12 o'clock in the night.
Oh my
So,
God.
and she has whole lot of extra curriculums and dancing and reading Chinese, English, which is like a must do for the kids now. Too busy, and they don't have that much of time to just doing nothing, wandering around or staring at a bag and wondering what they're thinking,
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, so it's quite different. So I myself, I didn't experience that kind of stress in my childhood. I also don't want my kids to experience that. I think a happy childhood is really important for your whole life, I think.
Nice.
I'll tell you my daily routine when I was a kid.
Okay.
So wake up. My first tuition was at 7:30 in the morning. So before 7:30, I have to travel to the tuition place. So it's not in my house. So I have to take a travel 20 minutes trip there for 1 hour English tuition. So that's my morning starts. Class starts at 9. 8:30 you finish, come home, and 9 o'clock you have to be in the school. And then your school time starts with a parade and some marching, some exercise, then the national anthem, some religious thing, and then the school starts at 9:30. From then until 3 o'clock you are in the school with a half an hour break only in between. 3:30 you come home, you have 1 hour to have shower, lunch. 4 o'clock is my another tuition, so then I go for my English tuition, then science tuition, and then 8:30 you are free. Free means you have to do the homework that the tuition and the school give you until 10. Have dinner, maybe 11 o'clock you finish everything, go to bed, and then wake up next morning.
And start all over again.
Start all over again, and all you are learning is academic. So you are not learning how to cook or how to prepare for anything. There is nothing out of the book. And I had to learn social science, arts, commerce, 3 different science, chemistry, biology, and then physics, and then general knowledge, arts and crafts. So there was 12 subjects, and you have to carry 12 books on your bag when you're going to school. So this is the life we
that
have.
counts as physical training as well.
It really does.
I remember there was a time I was punished because I didn't carry the book in the school.
Oh my
Wow.
God.
Yeah.
That will do it. And then you'll never forget to bring home.
So here I see my kid's school bag is only lunchbox, and that's it. You don't have to carry even a book in the school because the school gives you the book. You keep the book in the school, and
That
you don't.
makes so
you
much
didn't bring it
sense.
home.
Yeah.
I wish I had that life.
Yeah, I mean, because I guess in New Zealand, you study at school, you live at home, and there's
There's
the
a
separation.
separation that we don't have. Yeah, we also
Yeah.
don't have that.
I think that's a
Informal.
training for work-life balance when they grow up in future as well. Because back home, when you think about it, my dad still works until 8 at night. So
Yeah.
there is no work-life balance. So if you come to New Zealand, the work-life balance starts study-life balance and then work-life balance.
I feel
Yeah,
like
we take it very seriously in this
Yeah.
country.
I feel like we talk about work-life balance as this foreign concept right now. Meanwhile, if anyone is listening, they know work-life balance is probably better than us. For me as well, when I did my master's at University of Auckland, I was shocked of how little hours of a study you put compared to Peru. In Peru, my undergrad was packed from the morning until 4 p.m. Not because I wanted to, that's how things were. And here it was just a couple of hours on Monday and a few hours on Wednesday, and you're good for the week, and you can study later on. So it felt much more relaxed and less
And
pressure.
you don't need to feel guilty for relaxing,
Yeah.
I worked 7 years before I came here, and both in industry and academic. I was almost 24 hours and 7, like on duty, like that. Whenever your colleague or your boss want to get something done, you will get message or calls, even if it's a holiday or after hours. But I've never ever had one message, one call from work here in New Zealand after hours. So, and initially I felt like, am I
Not doing enough?
Yeah, am
Totally,
I not doing enough? Like always like that. Yeah, I used to come to work on weekends during my PhD, and my supervisor sometimes he would be here, and when he looked at me like, "What are you doing here? It's weekend." Yeah, so I was like, yeah, it's really important to enjoy this life work balance. It's really good thing about New Zealand, I think.
Yeah. So at the risk of asking a loaded question, do you think that sort of work-life balance and the other benefits are overall a good thing? One of the reasons you moved to this country?
Yeah, for me it is. It is one of the best thing about living and studying in New Zealand here. If you talk to some other visitors here, like from China, you will know how PhD students work, or from US, they work like crazy.
Yeah.
I still struggle to have a yes or no answer to your question, because I do feel like, in a way, New Zealand can be a bit too laid back for my liking. But I don't know if that's because Peru has messed me so much that I'm just like, I'm more used to having those amount of hours of working, and having also people around you in Peru that work from Monday to Sunday, from 8 to 8. Then you think that's the normal for a very long time. So I'm still transitioning, I think.
Yeah. But then let's open up the question then. What do you find unique or special about this country?
Many things I found unique and special. One thing that I like of New Zealand that we don't have much in Peru is how people can treat each other on the same level regardless of the hierarchy. And so in Peru there's a bit more of that hierarchy respect level, so you have to also dress a certain way and talk a certain way to certain people, and here is not so much the case, and that makes so much more sense in my head than treating someone differently just because they have a higher rank or a lower rank than me.
I mean, I can totally relate. I went to a military high school, so everyone was sir or madam.
Yes.
And then I went to Australia first, and they have a very similar sort of atmosphere to New Zealand, in that, there isn't that social hierarchy, and so you call everyone by their first name, which can be really confronting at first, but people will insist. And then you realize that, what you bring to the table is really valuable. So it has this massive psychological effect on encouraging you to be more open and growing and feeling valued about who you are in the society. So personally, totally agree with that. Yeah.
And
Definitely.
I love the casualty of it sometimes, going to a conference and you see New Zealanders or Kiwis showing up with casual clothes, and that in Peru will be like, no, like you have to have like really a nice attire, a nice suit, or well-dressed and polished. And that doesn't really mean anything, to be honest.
Yeah, I show up every day in hoodies, so yeah.
Yeah, example AJ.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of things to add on to say, like how nice New Zealand is. Most importantly is the people. I love the people here. It's not that by choice I choose because the peoples are nice. It just got as a bonus. Like, it's a really beautiful country with nice people. And when I was young, I used to see New Zealand in the ads like, all these green grasses and cows are grazing. It's like a milk powder ad comes in the TV. And
The postcard dairy farm.
yeah, so that's how we imagine New Zealand. And I think it's really much more wider variety than only the cows grazing in the grass. It's so much nicer in real life. It's so much beautiful. If you go to South Island, it's just like you are in your dream. I'm not saying North Island is that bad, but South Island is nicer than North Island. And I think I would like to add is like there's less corruption. That's one of the reason I came overseas, and it's clean and pretty much it. Yeah.
When some people say that Auckland is not too clean, and when I compare to
much
Peru,
more cleaner than our country where I came from.
much more cleaner.
And the systems are really good, like, all this rubbish collection and rubbish dumping and like green waste. Now it's starting the household, at least we are thinking about it.
Yeah, there's a focus on sustainability, cleanliness, environment. Yeah.
Yeah, so at least New Zealand thinks clean, how to keep and I think we are one of the first country who is going on clean energy. So, when you think about all these things, it's like we are GMO free still and we are clean.
Yeah, you can definitely buy bottled New Zealand air overseas.
It's on AliExpress.
Yeah, this is how I know.
Check it.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yep.
Oh, I thought you were joking.
Nope.
I can
Yeah,
imagine
and
New
it's
Zealand water, but New Zealand air.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, when you don't have it, you realize how valuable it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, and with the landscapes as well. I think people here are very used to their green hills and forests. They are like, oh yeah. And for me, it's just mesmerizing every time I see it. This is things you put on a calendar in Peru. Imagine, you think this is like Narnia or something that
Yeah.
doesn't exist, but it does exist in this
Oh, one
Yeah.
thing that Jay said that he was honking. I think that's the one thing I really like about New Zealand. Nobody honks here.
Yeah. Unless, of course, they're recent immigrants. to the country. Yeah. Well, we'll forgive them that.
Yeah.
I think one unique thing about New Zealand for me is, as a woman especially, you can feel that kind of respect from people. So you will get credit if you work hard. Also, you get more flexibility you have in your career. You can change your career path quite easily, like at least easier than in China. Also, not only for women, like it's very competitive now, especially for women. People would say, once you are over like 35, your value is going down
Wow.
in many area. But here, I have this wonderful lady I met in one of my PhD workshop. She was in her 50s and she's doing a PhD. And meantime, she has a very good career in engineering as well. So she just wants to do it. She wants to pursue that. I think it's really encouraging for women to pursue a life or career. You have the choice. You have the option to develop yourself here. That's one
Yeah.
of the reasons I found it really special.
What a powerful point. Absolutely.
I would like to add something with it. Is like I feel safe here in New Zealand. I don't know, like if someone else has experienced this. Like, no matter what you wear, people will be looking at you, and I don't know. I don't like that sort of eye. You can tell like the look is not right.
Back home?
Yeah, you can feel that look is not right. I never got that in New Zealand. No matter how you go out, when you go out, I cannot imagine me going out at 10 o'clock by myself. And I can do it in New Zealand safely.
As a woman, I much
As a
more
woman.
prefer New Zealand than Peru, sadly. And as well, same as you. Well, from the rural town that I came from in Peru, it was not too bad. But then when I had to do my undergrad in Lima, the capital city, I felt observed all the time. And it was men were not shy about it. They would just they're constantly observing the women on the street. And when I came to New Zealand, I was like, oh, I'm not being observed. This feels nice to not be judged because I'm wearing something. Or...
And you get toned as well. Like when
Yeah.
you're walking in the street, people will be back talking on you.
Yeah.
If you're wearing something, I don't wear something short, but if somebody is wearing something short, you will get back toned from your back. People
Yeah.
will be talking back and you can hear that as a woman.
That's disrespectful.
I
Yeah.
hate that. I think that's one of the things I really, really love here. And one other thing I would like to add is like, I'm not saying it's bad or good, but back home, we have an age limit when we can apply for a government job. So after you are 30, you cannot even apply for a government job.
Why is that?
Oh, we have an age limit. That's the government job age limit. So if you somehow do not come to that category, like if I go back now, I will not be able to get a job because I have missed that time of my life overseas. So here you can get any job, even as a say like engineer, pilot, and anywhere, any sorts of job as a woman, and you have no age limit. Anybody can do it.
Yeah, I think in this country we tend to frown upon bureaucracy a little bit more than most other countries that I have experienced and know of. That's absolutely true. So we like to, in this podcast series, round off things with some advice for our listeners, but let's flip things around. Let's say you're giving advice to yourself in the past, right? So what would you, looking back, what sort of advice would you give to yourself, or what would you do differently? We'll start with you, Tina.
Well, we've been talking about these hurdles, challenges, and especially I gave some examples that aren't really pleasant. But in general, I want to say that living in New Zealand is really nice, and I would encouraging people from overseas to come over, study or work. And from my point of view, if I would give myself some suggestions in the past, I would say don't limit myself too much. Don't give myself too much, how do you say that?
Boundary?
Yeah, like I would be more open to the community and don't be embarrassed. Well, don't feel like embarrassed if I can't understand the jokes at the table. Or, don't be afraid to reach out for, ask people. I would socialize it more and maybe be more confident to help others more. Yeah.
Okay.
That's very good. I think I learned, looking back, there were times that I should have given myself a bit more credit. And this all comes from when finishing my master's. I thought, not like I wasn't good enough, but I thought, my only chance for the next thing I could do is a PhD at Plant and Food. And sadly, because it aligned with COVID times, I had to wait for a long time for that to happen. And meanwhile, I was applying to other jobs that I was getting. Since they wanted me to stay with them for a long-term contract, I rejected them because my mind was like, no, Plant and Food. But then I realized I could have, not necessarily, I still wanted to do a PhD, but I could have expanded my options with other universities or applied to other places rather than being so trapped in that mindset. And now that I'm coming to an end of my PhD, I'm like, I want to take all the opportunities that I can and seize all the moments that I can and not think that, and a specific place is the only place you can work in.
Oh, I always follow my own advice. So,
Perfect.
yeah. So, if you have realized what I have done so far in my career, so I came with a bachelor and I did when I applied for my study in the university, I got the job in Plant and Food. So I chose to get the job rather than the study. And then I did my part-time study over time, and I'm still doing my master's. So it's just a continuous improvement and continuous things that you can add to your basket. There is no limit. You can stop. I could have just stopped with my bachelor because I already got a job. I could just come and go every day, but I didn't choose to do that. I wanted to develop. I don't want to stay still in one place. So it's my advice to myself is it's never too late. Just keep going. whenever you get the opportunity, take it and try it. You will not know until you try. It might be a fail, but unless you try, you will not know.
Oh, wonderful. That's some really good advice, team. Thank you so much. To summarize, be not afraid, be confident, be curious, explore more. Fantastic advice, not just for people intending to explore journeys overseas, but also in any career that you're exploring. That's really good. I love that. So thank you, team, for such a wonderful open conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time to, have this conversation with me, to share your experiences.
Thanks to you, Jay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay, for your time as well.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you, listeners, for lending us your ears. Hope you found this discussion interesting and informative, inspirational perhaps. If you like what you heard today, please tell your friends. If you didn't like it, please tell your enemies. And please don't forget, if you really care about us, to rate and review us on your favorite podcast app. If you take the time to do it, it means so much. Catch you next time on another episode of Sidegest.